organized now, though, and you have helpers
I
to get
do.
the word out.
Yes, I do. And I had a specific request for the European hour, so I can definitely do that. So we'll just put it on the calendar and make it happen. Probably on a Saturday. It seems to be the day of preference at the moment. All right, we're almost there. Do, 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 do. Thank you for your patience. Okay. All right, welcome everyone. It is Tuesday, October 22nd, and it's a little after 8 o'clock in the evening Eastern Time. It's a little after something o'clock wherever you are. I'm not exactly sure, but glad that you're here. We've got some new folks here: Rosemary, Molly, June's been with us a couple times. Candace is here regularly. Dr. Karen is here regularly. So glad you're here. Dr. Karen, I know you were not sure you were going to make it this evening. Davey, always good to see you. Want to give a shout out to Davey. He's a harp maker, and he took over for John Kovac when John passed away. John made really easy to build Paraguayan harp kits, and I built 4 of them. I haven't built one in a while, but I built 4 of them, and I got really excited about his so he built them out of unusual materials. So he built harps out of PVC pipe, plumbing pipe, and I got really excited about that because I lived in Hawaii at the time and I wanted to take my harps to the beach and play them underwater for the whales. That didn't go so well, but I tried. They are waterproof. They will, but harps really need air to play, it turns out, not water. But if you want to play for the whales, here's a tip: go out on a whale excursion where they will let you take your harp with you. Because when you put your harp in a boat, the boat becomes like a giant speaker, and the whales can definitely hear you. The vibrations of the harp go out through the feet of the harp into the boat, cause the whole boat hull to vibrate, and then the vibrations of the hull go into the water, and the whales can definitely hear you. So if you want to play for whales, that's a really good way to go. If you're super organized and you know scientists who have speakers and microphones and stuff like that, you can hook up your harps to speakers and microphones and have them play it for them underwater. But you don't actually need that because the boat itself is a vibrating instrument in the water, and it will work just fine. So tonight, let me get my notes out. We're going to talk about melodic exploration, creating simple tunes, and this is part of our exploration as improvising harpists. This is something that I should do. First, back up just a little bit, and for those of you who are new or haven't listened in a while, I am writing a book. My new book is called The Improvising Harpist Cookbook, and I'm putting together what I'm calling recipes for different types of improvisation. And one of the goals of the Improvising Harpist Cookbook is that you'll be able to make your own melodies. So, but to do that, you can think of a melody as like cake or butter chicken if you cook Indian food. I just cooked Indian food last weekend. Or some completed recipe. That a melody is a completed recipe. And in order to complete a recipe, you need a bunch of ingredients and you need a process for mixing those ingredients together to create the completed recipe. So we're going to talk about ingredients and process to create the completed recipe. Now, in the past couple weeks in my lessons, I've had some really interesting conversations with some of my students. One of my students, who is a classically trained harpist, went to school, learned to read music, played in orchestras, very, very highly trained, but wasn't ever taught to improvise. She went to work with, to try to learn how to improvise, and one of her first teachers said, just let go. Just sit at the harp and just let go. And I've heard that too. I've had that instruction. I've had somebody tell me, just let go. And that is an approach to improvising, but it usually doesn't go very well. Because what are you letting go of? And what are you moving towards? Those are huge questions. So I feel like just let go is kind of like turning my kitchen over to someone and say, just cook something. Well, if you don't know where I keep my knives, and you don't know where I keep my pans, and you don't know what spices I have, and you don't know what's in my fridge, like, it's not fair to ask you to go into my kitchen and cook something when you don't know what I've got in my kitchen, and maybe you don't even know how to cook. That's not fair at all. So just let go is not enough. It's not even really fair to give that as an instruction for how to improvise. So my goal over all of these free workshops, the paid workshops that I have, the private instruction that I give, all of that is to help you build your own pantry, build your own kitchen, make your own recipes, and build your own music. That's the goal. That's my goal for you. Okay, so we're going to do some very simple melodies tonight. I'm going to stick to the Dorian mode just because right now that's like an easy place to start. That's where I generally start when I start teaching improvisation, and it's really we'll do two different. We'll do Dorian mode, and then we'll do a G pentatonic, because G pentatonic is also very easy to work with. So I have a whole class about the modes. I'm just going to like briefly say that we're going to be in the key of C tonight. So if you have your harp with you, you want to tune your harp to C. And we're going to be in the Dorian mode. We're going to be working with the scale. A mode is just a scale. It's just a fancy word for a scale that has different whole steps and half steps from a normal scale. And the modes are so super easy on the harp because they're already laid out for us. We don't have to flip levers. You don't need any black keys. You don't have to memorize any of that. It's all right here for us. So we're just going to start and end on a D. That's it. So I'm playing, my harp is set in the key of C. I was playing in a different key earlier. And I'm in key of C. And I'm starting and ending on a D. Now I'm going to talk about Dorian mode just a second, and then we'll get into the melody construction. So I was talking with one of my students who's taking the International Harp Therapy Program. This is Christina Turin's program. It's a wonderful program if you want to get into healing harp, playing at bedside, playing for hospice, and all of that stuff. It's really great. But she talked about Dorian mode, and just like she gave this off-the-cuff comment that said, oh, it's like the relative minor with a raised sixth. And I remember when I took International Harp Therapy Program, I remember reading that and thinking, what the heck is she talking about? I don't even know. I hope it doesn't matter because I don't get it. But now I get it, and I want to explain it to you because I think it's helpful. So in the key of C, we're going to talk about majors and minors for a second, and then we'll talk about modes for a second. So you've got C major. And then you have what's called the relative minor. And the relative minor is the scale that is based on the sixth note of the C scale. So if we count up 6 from C, C is 1, D is 2, E is 3, F is 4, G is 5, A is 6. A is 6. So it's the scale that starts and ends on A and uses all the same notes as the C scale. So it sounds like this. In the world of modes, it's called the Aeolian mode. In classical terminology, it's called the natural minor. It's also called the relative minor. All of those three things refer to the same scale. You can also figure it out by counting down 2 from C. So instead of counting up 6, you can count down 2. So here's A, 2 below C. Okay. So far, so good? All right. So back to Christina Turin's comment, which was the Dorian mode is the relative minor with a raised sixth. But she doesn't say relative to what? Relative to what? So if we look at the D and we say it's the sixth note of what scale? So this is 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's the relative minor of F. I'm counting down from D down to F. D is 6, C is 5, B flat is 4, A is 3, G is 2, F is 1. Why do I say B flat? Because in the key of F, you have a B flat. So here's F. Do this here as well. So if I'm going to play the relative minor, this is the sixth scale of the F in the key of F. Okay, so far so good? All right. Now, if we raise the sixth note of the D minor scale, this is what Christine was talking about. First of all, let's look at what it is in its native. This is D Aeolian. We're in the key of F. I know I did that really fast. We're in the key of F, and that means there's a B flat. So if I count up 6, D is 1, E is 2, F is 3, G is 4, A is 5, B flat is 6, C is 7, and then D is 8. That's where, when she says Dorian is the relative minor with the sixth raised. So it's the D Dorian is the relative minor of F major. Remember that F major has a B flat. But at this B flat, it here is, again, D is 1, E is 2, D is 1, E is 2, F is 3, G is 4, A is 5. Now I'm going to raise the B flat to a B natural because B natural in C, key of C has a B natural. Here's a B natural. Weird sounding, huh? Compared to, here it is, Aeolian. Here it is, Dorian. This B natural. That is what is, as I'm spending more time with the modes, this is the defining note that means the difference between playing in Aeolian or playing in the natural minor and playing at Dorian. So this is Dorian with this lowered sixth. This is Aeolian. So this is for theory nerds. If this is like, what are she talking about? All you need to know in the key of C is that Dorian starts and ends on a D. If you have all your strings set up and you're in the key of C, you're fine. You're totally fine. And the tune that gets taught all the time for Dorian mode is Scarborough Fair. And this B natural only appears once in the entire tune, but it's there. And it makes that, and that is why this gets taught as a Dorian tune. Okay. So, sorry I went off into the nerd weeds for a second, but I think it's important to understand if you really want to get into the modes and you want to compose in the modes and you want to improvise in the modes. If you don't, you're like, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. That's fine. Just make sure that your harp is set in the key of C. You start and end your mode on a D, and you're going to be fine. Okay, so let's get on to making some melodies. So what I recommend in my cookbook as I'm designing it, one of the things in your pantry you need is a left hand. Some kind of left hand pattern to kind of hold things together. And so a really simple left hand pattern is just to play the D and the A. D is 1. You're going to count up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The harp is slightly out of tune, I'm sorry. And you have some choices here. You can play these two notes together as a blocked chord or solid chord, and you can play them one at a time. That's like plenty for making melodies because all the busyness is going to happen in the melody. And when you're composing or when you're improvising, what I recommend is that one hand is busy and one hand is not busy. So if the left hand is busy, the right hand should be doing something very simple. If the right hand is busy, the left hand should be doing something very simple. It's just easier that way. Okay, so now let's talk about melodies a little bit. So it turns out, and this took me a long time to figure out too, that most good melodies follow a scale. They don't jump around a lot. There are melodies that jump around, but they follow a scale, then they maybe jump a little bit. They follow a scale and they jump around a little bit. So when you're first starting to explore how do I make a melody, I say stick to a scale. What do I mean by a scale? Notes that are next to each other. Start with notes that are next to each other. And so let me give you a great example, famous example, where it jumps around and then it's a scale. Here's a scale, coming up, scale, notes next to each other. Very successful melody. Very successful melody. Picasso said, good artists borrow, great artists steal. We can borrow from Mozart, and we can do this in the Dorian mode. We're playing the exact same pattern, but we're playing it starting and ending on D. And it's got a spooky, Halloween, right around the corner. Why not? I wasn't intending to involve Mozart tonight, but here he is. So as you're exploring this, I want to encourage you, first off, to just stick to the first 5 notes of the Dorian scale. Doesn't involve the 6th note yet. So if you've been following along, you could be considered playing in the Aeolian mode, but we're going to call it Dorian because we're going to involve that B natural in just a minute. can make some really, yes.
Are you able to adjust your camera down a little bit so we can see your hands better?
Sure, can. Yep, thank you. Oh, you see all my shopping there in the background?
Oh.
Let me move it back a little bit. Okay. Okay. So you're playing with those first. This is what I recommend. In the left hand, you got a D and an A going on here. Right now, I'm just playing them as a drone, those two together. Should have tuned the harp, sorry. I'm playing a little 5-note scale here. And I'm starting and ending on D. And my next tip to you is start and end on D. Start and end on D. Okay. So then you can even just, I'm saying the first 5 notes, but you can even do the first 3 notes. Keep it simple at first. Keep it simple. Don't try to overcomplicate things while you're figuring out how's the left hand going to work, how's the melody going to work. There are a lot of moving parts here. There's the left hand drones. There's how many notes are you going to try to use in your melody to begin with, 3 or 5. And then we haven't even talked about rhythm. So let's talk about rhythm for a little bit. So I've talked about this in the past, but one of my favorite books is called The Music Lesson by Victor Wooten, Wooten. Very sweet little fairy tale about him. He's a wonderful jazz bass player, and it's sort of Jonathan Livingston Seagull meets music. It's a wonderful little story about him meeting the angel of music who comes to him in a parking lot riding a skateboard and a bright yellow rain poncho, and teaches him all kinds of lessons, 10 lessons about music. And this book is the 10 lessons of music that he taught him. And the first lesson is the groove is all important. And in classical music, that word is the pulse. The underlying beat is all important. And it is. Even if you're playing atmospheric music for sound baths, which I do a lot, or yoga classes, there's still some sort of underlying structure. Otherwise, it just gets mushy and doesn't mean anything. So you want to have some kind of underlying structure, some kind of groove that you're working with. And the easiest way to do this when you're working on your tunes is to work with a metronome. So I'll take a little diversion into metronomes here. There's old school metronomes, like, yeah, like the school metronome real quick. I just had it a minute ago. It looks like this, right? They're annoying. That's what it sounds like. All right, this is set for 44. But I can make it go faster and slower, and it's got a little dial on it. I like to use an app called Pro Metronome, which is the little purple app in the upper left-hand corner, Pro Metronome. I bought this years ago. It was $5 when I bought it. I know it's more now, but it looks like this. And you can set speed here, 4/4/3/4, 7/4, 5/4, whatever you want. You can tell it to click off in quarter notes, eighth notes, triplets, all kinds of different types of counts for you. But, and you start and stop it here. Make it go a little bit faster. So we'll do that. If I want to have it play different, here I can have it do eighth notes. Oh, whoops. I can make it make different sounds when I turn this off accidentally by touching it. There we go. Highly recommend you become friends with your metronome. So what if I'm going to use this metronome for this right now? I'm going to set it for 80. It's going to sound like that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tap my feet and maybe clap my hands, close my eyes, listen to the metronome. Really feel where that beat is. So important to be able to feel where that beat is. And then I'm going to start with my left hand. It's just me. Sorry, this is just so out of tune. You notice I'm going one string next to another one. And I toss in some eighth notes there. And I happen to have this set up for 4/4 time, which I also recommend you start with. I love 3/4 and 6/8 time as well. If you're a 3/4, 6/8 time person, and dive into that as well. Tons and tons of music out there is set in 4/4 time, so it's an easy one to access. And so having a metronome, I think, is really important, and then having a timer is really important. So because you're writing or composing or improvising, it's hard to know when to stop. When should you stop playing? If you're playing something kind of open-ended, when do you stop? And if you've played written music, you stop at the end of the page when the composer tells you to stop. But if you're doing your own thing, when do you stop? I recommend you set a timer, and that's when you stop. And set your timer for something that feels just a little uncomfortably long. And if you're just getting started doing this, 2 minutes might feel uncomfortably long. 5 minutes might feel uncomfortably long. I've got to the point now where I play for an hour. But what I find is that when you set your timer for something that feels a little uncomfortably long, the creative stuff comes at the end when you're uncomfortable. I hate to tell you that, but it's true. Creativity comes just on the other side of boredom, just on the other side of frustration. Like, oh, I could have done, oh, that kind of thing. Oh, that kind of thing. And then the next thing that I recommend you have is a recorder of some kind, and get comfortable with just having your voice memo. It doesn't have to be fancy or high fidelity or anything like that. You don't have to go out and buy a soundboard, do all that stuff. Just to record your ideas, because you're going to play something amazing and then you're like, I can't remember what I just played. It was so cool. What was that?
Simber?
Go. Yeah.
Hi. Do you mind if I ask a question now, or should I hold it?
No, go for it.
Okay. Oh, great. Okay. It's Rose. Hi. When you're playing with your right hand, are you using just your index finger, or what are you using?
Oh, well, what I'm doing, sometimes I'm using my index finger. Sometimes I'm using all my fingers.
I guess that's the thing that it gets me all tense about improvising because I'm so used to having learned, bracketing and facing, like, oh, where am I going next in a piece of music? Whereas when you're improvising, I guess you're supposed to have that freedom. And then, how does that translate into your finger positions?
Yeah, that's a really great question. That comes back to the just let it flow, just be free. Like, what? If you're used to bracketing and fingering, or like, how are you supposed to do that? So I highly recommend that you spend some time with your exercise books, whatever favorite exercise book that you have, and
Mhm.
play with those fingerings. So it could be my favorite is the Deborah For You Speed and Agility book. And because I play those exercises all the time, those that fingering is accessible to me without me having to think about it.
Oh, I see what you're doing. Yeah.
That's only because I've done those exercises a million times.
Okay.
So, but I will say, the first time I saw Christina Turin do a scale like this, I thought she was cheating
Oh,
because I had spent so much time doing 4-3-2-1, cross under correctly, four
yeah.
three two one, 1-2-3-4, crossover. When she did it
Right.
all with one finger, I'm like, are you kidding me? Can you do that? Is that allowed?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Now, when you get into playing more, you're going to find that playing just with your index fingers is going to produce one kind of sound. Playing with multiple fingers is going to produce a different sound.
Oh,
And depending on what you want, you may want the sound of 4 fingers playing this versus playing it this way.
okay. That's
And
great.
this is a, do you use red pepper, black pepper, or white pepper?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all pepper.
That'll
What
look.
does the recipe call for?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is your taste bud like?
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to your book.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to being done with it.
Thank you.
I started writing it earlier in the year and then I moved. I wasn't expecting to move, and the move has really slowed me down in terms of getting it done and getting it out the door. But it's coming. It is coming. Talking with you guys is really motivational for me to keep going. All right, so we've talked about the groove. This is really important. We've talked about recording. This is really important. We're working in a particular mode. I think it's really important to, as you just sit down and you say, I think I want to write a melody, to pick a, a mood. What is it you're trying to convey with this melody? Is it happy? Is it wistful? Is it sad? Is it kind of mysterious? Is it, there are lots of different emotive words out there that you could use. And then you this is just the order that I initially recommend you do this in. Pick what is it you're trying to express, and then start figuring out what modes, because we have access to all the modes on the harp, what modes are going to best express that mood that you're trying to convey. So I picked Dorian tonight just because it's easy, but it also turns out it's kind of spooky, so it's good for Halloween, and that's where we are in the year. So I got my metronome going. I can't do a recording and a metronome on the same device. So just FYI, if you're trying to run a metronome app on one device and record on the same device, it probably won't work. Most phones can only do one audio thing at a time. So if the metronome's making noise, that counts as one audio thing. If you're trying to record something, that counts as one audio thing. So you might need 2 phones or an iPad and a phone, or a computer and a phone, or two different devices to be recording and running your metronome if you're doing a metronome app. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual adding that sixth note, that Dorian sixth note, which is the B natural. Okay, I just switched to 3/4 times after I just told you 4/4 time. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Let's try that again. Oh, and I should say that be prepared to make lots of mistakes. Be prepared that you're going to play stuff that you're like, I don't like that. It's okay. You don't have to. This is the beauty of music, is it's not like cooking. Like you make a mistake in baking and that's it. You got to throw out the whole cake. In music, you're just, let's start over again. Okay, so there's a lot of things happening there that I should explain. One is that I'm working in groups of 4. So I'm in 3/4 time. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. And that's because that is kind of standard phrasing. Phrasing comes from singing. So it's kind of how long a sung phrase would last, usually 4 measures. So if you're putting together a melody, you can think of either 4/4 time, 4 groups of 4 beats, or if you're working in 3/4 time, 4 groups of 3 beats. And then go into your next section. So what did I do here? So 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4. So it wraps up nicely. Not all music does that. You get into more complex classical music and more complex jazz music, it doesn't neatly fit into that square 4/4, but start there. It's easier. Start there. The next thing I would recommend you do when you're making melodies is to aim for what I call target notes at the end of every group of 4. Target notes are just chord tones, but if you aim for that target note, which is a chord tone at the end of every phrase, it's going to sound good. So if I do start on a D, start and end on a D. Whatever happens in the middle, like Stefan Grappelli always says, start good, end good, whatever happens in the middle is okay. So start good, start and end on a D, and you're going to be fine. So here we go. So D, 2, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, and then you can rest here. Don't rest here for a bit with the left hand. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. So I'm starting and ending on D. Let's start and end on a different target note here. Starting F. And because I'm now coming back to my 4th group of 4, I'm going to go back to the D. So far, so good? Okay. So if you think about Celtic music, let's think about Celtic music for a second. But a lot of folk music and pop music too uses an A-A-B-A song form. So the first four measures are one phrase. The second four measures are the same, exact same. The third four measures are something different. And then the fourth four measures are the same as the beginning or slightly different, but pretty close. This is a way to make the song make sense. So could be, now Scarborough Fair doesn't do that. It's does something different, but let's see. So let's call that our phrase one. 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be my A phrase. And I'm going to repeat that. So I just did that twice. Now I'm going to do a third, my third phrase, or my B phrase, which is the third part, is going to be different. And I ended on a target note, which is the A. I don't think I said that earlier. I'll come back to that in a second. And then I'm going to do the beginning again. So in Dorian mode, the target notes are D, F, A, D. The other notes totally can play those, the in-between notes, the C and the B, the G and the E. But they're passing tones. They're not resting tones. So you can play them, but they're harder to rest on. They're harder to end a phrase on. Phrase A. Phrase B. Ending on the A, here's the target tone, A, and then back to the first phrase. So the thing that I want to applaud you all for doing is being composers. Yay, you're composers. And improvisation is composition in the moment. So it's really important to feel it. Well, I'll say it this way: in order to feel comfortable and confident as an improviser, you need to know rules is a strong word, but you need to know some rules of composition. I call them pantry items in your kitchen or tools in your toolbox, and how they go together. Like, putting sugar with pepper might work in some recipes, but boy, you really got to know what you're doing if you're going to do that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So Simber, when you do that third phrase and you want it to be different from the first and the last, would it be okay then also if you wanted to take your left hand and then do like maybe a roving thumb, but within that same rhythm? That would be acceptable.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In addition to changing the melody. Okay.
Yeah. You're using almond flour instead of a wheat flour. That's totally fine. Test it and see. I really encourage you to test things and go in kind of with a scientific mind, like, well, let's see if this works. And try not to be too emotionally attached to it. It must be beautiful right from the beginning. But be like, oh, whoa, I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this will work. I wonder if this is going to convey what I'm trying to, is this like tonight I'm talking about spooky. Is this spooky enough? Am I really conveying ghostly qualities, or is it, I could, so let me try to deliberately make a few mistakes so I can show you what I mean. So if I'm so far, but if this isn't so bad. I've added now a C chord to my Dorian mode. It's happy. It's a C major chord. Is it spooky? Not really. Does it work with the D minor? Absolutely, it works. It works well, but is it really conveying spooky? Well, let's see. Not as spooky as it could be. It could be spookier. I mean, it's good. It sounds good. Like, that is actually okay. So this is, spoiler alert. This is Drunken Sailor. What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor? Oh, in the morning. Perfectly acceptable Celtic chord progression. But is it Halloweeny? To my taste, not so much. But it's something that I use a lot, and I might say, okay, well, I'm going to try that C chord with the D minor chord. What I really love for that spooky sound is that B, this. If you've ever seen the movie Coraline, oh, yeah, right. That just the eyes, the button eyes, the whole thing is like right there for me when I'm thinking. It's this B that's doing it for me, spooky wise. So if I'm writing something spooky, I'm gonna make sure that I get that as much as I can, get that B in there as much as I possibly can. As you're composing, be on the lookout for that one note that just lights everything up. It might be just one note that's like, oh, that is what's making it sound magical, mystical, spooky, happy, sad, whatever you're after. And other time, other play shops will explore other chord progressions, and I'll talk about why certain chord combinations sound like the ocean to me, or other, like, Celtic, like what I just played, Drunken Sailor, and why that's so useful for certain things. But we'll stick with spooky tonight. So as you're going into your own exploration of melody making, I would encourage you to start keeping a journal, whether you keep it on your computer or keep it written, of the pantry items that you already have. So that's going to be your metronome, some kind of recording device, some kind of start as you're listening to. This is so important too. Go whatever you're listening to, your Spotify list or music that you've got. You're started building your vinyl collection again. Whatever you're listening to, things that you really love to listen to, and what can you take, little bits that you can take from things that you love and incorporate them into what you're building. Then you need some kind of groove, some kind of mood that you want. Start keeping track of that stuff in a little notebook or jotted in your phone, however you keep notes. And then you've got them. And then later, and record yourself, not because you're trying to be perfect, but because you're just trying to keep track of all the beautiful stuff that you're creating, that you're like, oh my God, that was so great, and now I can't remember what I just played. And you, by the way, do not have to be old for that to happen. That happens to every creator. Like, I just made something wonderful and now I can't remember what it is. Because we're all creating. We're all creating. We're all creating all the time. And then later, if you want to write it down, notate it, all of that stuff, that's a whole project for another time. You don't have to do that. You can, and share it with the world. Yay. We need more harp music out there. But you don't have to. Don't feel like, oh, I don't know how to write music. I don't know how to read music. If you don't know notation, you don't need to. You can do this you can do this all by ear. You can do this all by however you take notes, however you keep track of stuff. You don't have to do it by notation. Notation is helpful, but it is not necessary to this journey of creating your own music. There was one more thing I was going to say, another pantry item that I would recommend that you have. But I can't think of what it is right now. So, questions, comments?
Simber, Molly had a question a little bit earlier when you were talking about the strength and speed and agility book. Do you have a favorite from that book that you like to use when you're improvising?
Oh, yes. Let's see. I should do a whole class on strength, speed, and agility. My favorite exercises are in the front of the book. So there are 2-finger exercises that I think start on page 9. There are 3-finger exercises. So the 2-finger exercises tend to be in the category of this kind of thing. I like those because then let's put that on the Dorian mode. And when she writes them as eighth notes, so it's the eighth note. But then I took an amazing class years ago from Chris Caswell, who's passed, rest in peace, Chris, and he had me do triplets. So they're still 2 fingers, but they're done as triplets. That took me a very long time to be able to do. Oh, just saying. I spent a lot of time practicing those. The other ones that I like out of Deborah Freya's book are the triplet exercises. But her interval exercises are also excellent. And I like them as just as exercises, hand strengthening exercises, but I also love them as sources of patterns for improvisation. And you don't have to just use her book. There are plenty of harp exercise books out there that if you already, don't go buy something new if you've already got a harp exercise book, just use what you've got. And learn those patterns cold so that your fingers just do them without you having to think about it. That you can do those 4-finger patterns, 3-finger patterns, 2-finger patterns. And then you can do, different intervals. I've never met Deborah. I've sent her notes, a couple ton notes, like, thank you for writing this amazing book. I love this book. I've never met her. I would love to meet her someday because I find her stuff so helpful. But and you can get her book on Amazon. You can get it at Melodies, folkharp.com. I'm sure Sylvia Wood sells it. Your favorite harp store probably sells it. It's a very popular book. It's got a yellow cover. Yeah.
I had a question on modes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I've been diving a lot into modes. My instructor really likes them, and so I'm very much an improv person, and then need to pull back to something that actually makes sense with a melody. But I was curious if you had favorite modes that you use. I've been playing a lot with Dorian, but I like Lydian too. But I didn't know if there was any that you enjoyed to explore. Those are the kind of two I've been doing for a while. But I was curious if there were any other modes that you liked and would recommend, like exploring.
That's a really great question. I love them all. They each one has its own flavor, each one has its own purpose, and so I'll use them for different things. Now I have some that I use much more often. So I use Dorian more often, I use Mixolydian more often, I use Aeolian more often, and I use Ionian more often. But Phrygian has its place, especially in healing work. I have not personally experienced this, but my colleagues have told me that if you play Phrygian mode for somebody long enough, like 20 minutes, it produces a bowel movement. Which sounds sort of like, what is that? But if you've got somebody who they've been taking some kind of painkillers that have really got them blocked up, they've been in a hospital and they need to move, this can help them move. Locrian mode, which is based on the 7th degree of the scale. Again, I have not personally done this, but I have colleagues who have done this. They use Locrian mode for people who are actively dying because it is so ungrounded. So when someone is in the process of passing away, we want to help them move on. We don't want to keep them here beyond when they're supposed to be here, but it turns out that if you're playing their favorite music, they want to stay. They want to listen to their music. And so what I was taught, what I'm encouraged to do is to play music that allows them to release. And so the Locrian mode is good for that. Now I will just say that I like to mix and match my modes a lot. And if you send me a note, send me an email at simberlilyharp@gmail.com, I'll send you a link to my modes chart, and I give you different modes that go nicely together. But I know we're running over, but I'll give you this last one. So I do the A minor, which is the Aeolian, to G, to F, Lydian, E minor. Oh, hang on. There we go. Which is the Phrygian, back to the A minor. And that turns out to be green sleeves in a lot of other songs. But you can use this 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 back to 6 as a really nice improv structure. And it allows you to mix and match lots of different modes. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, I love Mixolydian. Yeah, me too. I started to think about talking about Mixolydian, like, oh no, we'll be here all night if I start down that path. I won't do that. I'll do another one on Mixolydian. But yeah, thanks for coming, Molly. It's great to have you here tonight.
Oh yeah, I'll be around. I don't know if you know Meredith Bosek, but she's been sending me stuff, and I decided to jump on, and I'm gonna try and come to these. They're fun and I like it.
Yeah, cool. Send me a note. I'll add you to the email list, and then you'll get the notifications when because I finally learned how to do email just recently. I mean, I can do email, but like email lists, I've been resisting doing email lists for years, and I finally decided to learn how to do it. So now I'm doing it. All right. Perfect. Other questions from anybody? Are we good for the evening?
Oh, I just had one really quick one.
Sure.
Can I ask it? Okay. So you were
Yeah.
saying something about, hi, when you said something about when we were doing the the Dorian, and you said there were like, what did you call them? Like key notes of that, like D, F, and A. Those are the notes. Those are the notes that you kind of come back to. Is that the same pattern for every mode? The same three, like, whatever the first note is, and the triplet or the triad of that mode?
It's the triad. Yeah.
The triad.
I call them I call them target notes,
Okay.
but really they're the chord tones.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
So for the Dorian, it's the D, F, and
F and
A.
A,
If you're
yeah.
playing in the key of C, it's C, E, and G.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you for coming. Well, our next one will be in 2 weeks, and invite your friends. And as always, these are on YouTube. Usually they get posted right away, and then I get them out to everybody shortly after that. And I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you.
If you record something and you want me to listen to it, just email it to me, and I'll be delighted to listen.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
So worthwhile.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.